Go.
Ah,
All right.
we're
Are we
live.
good?
Looking good.
All right, cool. Let me just make some adjustments real quick.
All right.
All right, perfect. Awesome.
How are you doing
I was like,
today, sir?
where you at?
In Georgia?
Okay, so what are you like? 2 hours, 3 hours?
From,
I'm in Cali, so I think you guys are 3 hours in front of us.
oh, yeah, 3 hours.
Okay.
Gotcha.
I got a little nervous. I saw the time when I clicked on Zoom. It was like 9:30 a.m. I was like, oh wait, was it
That
1 o'clock his time or my time?
that had me messed up too. I think for some reason there may have been two invites or something going on because I messaged you earlier, but I thought I spaced it out well enough to where like we got the right time because somebody had reached out to me on Instagram to help me out with speaking, and I was like,
Got it.
oh,
Okay.
like perfect timing. And then I made sure to check the schedule and say like, let me pick a time slot that's not going to interfere with anything else. And then as soon as I got on that call and I started looking over here, I was like, wait, why is there a meeting right here? And the next thing I know, like I went ahead, took a nap, got back up, and it's like 4 o'clock Eastern time, and I'm like, okay, like it's showing up here, but it's not there. But hey, we're both here on the same
We're here
time.
now. We're here now. We're good. We're good.
How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm blessed. I can't really complain. Great California weather. Got a little bit of allergies kicking in right now, but we'll be all right.
That's good. Ooh. So, man, I'm still trying to figure out how to start this thing off right, but so far it's just been just flowing into it like this as a conversation.
Make it
And
all
I mean,
organic, man.
as far as I know, I just met you through Breathe University this year,
Yeah.
and I saw you doing your thing on the speakers battle, and I was like, man, okay, like, can you tell me how you got involved with that, like speaking wise, or just decided to join the battles?
You know what? It's interesting. So I got to kind of back up a little bit. So I come from an artistry background. Like I was a hip hop artist back in the mid '90s, all the way up to probably about the mid 2000s. Still kind of dabbling in it a little bit.
Okay.
So I've always had that performance background, right?
Mm.
And then I've also done a couple of speaking things like at my church.
Okay.
And so when I got involved in Breathe University, it was, everybody's kind of drawn to ET and the passion and just his transparency and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, man, I wonder if I could actually do that.
Right.
No. So then Nikki presented the challenge, right? And I was like, okay, here's your chance. So I'm going to go ahead and step outside of the comfort zone because, being able to perform on stage as an artist is a little bit different from being a public speaker, right? Because I'm an artist in a group of 7 or 3 or whatever. I don't have to just rap for 45 minutes to an hour straight, right?
Right.
So I was like, okay, let me throw my hat in the ring and see what we got. So after that, it was just kind of like everything just happened.
Is the battle still
the first round? Even the first round was crazy, right? So I got to tell this story. So my mom, I was out on a family vacation in Texas. So my family's from Texas. I was flying back to California from Dallas. Mm-hmm. And my aunt, who I just left the day before, called me and said, "Hey, Dietric, your mom is in the hospital. She had an aneurysm." And I'm like, this is 30 minutes before I get on the plane, right? Before we're boarding. And I'm like, oh, okay, so what's going on? Well, that's the thing, son. Nobody knows where she's at. And I'm like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, what's going on? And we're trying to figure everything out. I'm like, okay, we need to call the police. What's the hospital not saying? And so they tell me the story about how they were doing a random check in her apartment. They found her unresponsive on the bed and they shipped her to a hospital. Like EMT came, they put her in a hospital. So when her apartment called to find out like what's the update, they were like, well, we don't know where she's at. They dismissed her.
Right.
So we were like, well, what do you mean they dismissed her? Where did she go? So nobody knew. So we're scrambling around. 15 minutes later, I get a call from another hospital that says, hey, I'm glad we found you. Your mom is here. I'm like, okay, well, what's going on? Well, she's in ICU in the neuro department here at the hospital. So like I board the plane, I get home, tuck the kids into bed, do all of that fun stuff. And like, I'm literally looking for a flight to get out either the next morning or on a Friday. And so I fly out on a Friday and I'm at the hospital and everything's just like going crazy. So I think it was like 9:30 Denver time. I'm just kind of scrolling through Facebook. My mom is asleep in her room. I'm just in the room kind of going through it. And I see Nikki post like, yeah, first round of the speakers battle is me against Joe Hammond. And your videos are due at midnight. And I'm like, wait a minute, it's 9:30 now. It's 11:30 in New York. Okay, I got 30 minutes to put this video together. And so I'm like, okay, I can't do it in my mom's room. She's asleep. I can't do it outside. It's pitch black. So I go downstairs into the lobby of the hospital, start recording. And as soon as I start recording, woo, 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 the EMTs rush in. And I'm like, okay, I can't use that one. Let me find another place to record. So I sit down another place. I start recording. And one of the janitorial staff was walking down the hallway with the cart. And all you hear is, I'm like, oh, gosh, okay, I can't sit here. Like, it's like 9:45 at this point. And I'm like, okay, I got to get this video in. Right. So I go to another location and I sit down, I start recording, and this huge family comes in. They're obviously visiting somebody that's in the ER. And one of the little kids is just like, ah! And I'm like, oh, I can't use that either. So now it's like 9:50, right? And I'm like, okay, I got 10 minutes. I don't think I'm going to make it. And I'm like, I'm on Facebook and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do it. I might have to just bow out. Somebody hits me and they were like, man, just do it. It doesn't matter. Just do it. And so it's like, okay, cool. I close my eyes. I sit for a second and then I open them up and I just start recording. And when people start coming, I just hit pause. And then when they leave, I start re-recording from there. And I hit pause and I start re-recording from there. And so in the speakers battle, you get like 3 minutes, right? Yeah. I use like a minute, maybe 34 seconds for that first round. And so I was just like, I sent it off to Nikki and I was like, oh, I don't know about this one, but this is like, I can't do anything else, like my circumstances, but I'm thinking you got to just execute.
Right.
Okay, so we turned it in and then she sends it out and was like, okay, first round battles are up. It's Dietric versus Joe. Unfortunately, Joe goes over time limit. So by DQ, Dietric gets passed through. And so like, I'm like, okay, so I get to see what everybody's kind of doing through all of these videos. And I'm like, okay, I mean, you knew you had to step your game up, but like the level of intensity is like here. And I'm like, okay, now I know. So I'm just like studying all these things. Like, okay, how do I want to tell my stories? How do I want to craft stuff? So every time a topic comes out, I'm like, okay, what story do you pull from the bank? And how does that apply to the people? Like, what do you want to say?
Right.
And so I just started letting them go, right? So I use little bitty, tips and tricks and everything like that when you're talking about, people that learn, audio, visual, kinesthetic, all that kind of stuff like that. And so I just go for it every time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I hope my stories like are drawing people in because, the competition was kind of fierce. Like there was some people on there where you're like, oh. So I was like, okay. And each round I kept getting passed through and I was like, okay, you may be able to do this. Like it turned from, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it because of that first situation to like, you literally got a shot. And it just came back to something that, we talk about at Breathe University a lot. It's just like execution is worship. And so had I not done that first round and just been like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. It's not perfect, but I'm just going to do it. Like I wouldn't even be here in the finals right now. And so I'm pretty excited just to see what, what my boy John is going to come with on his side. Cause I know he's a beast at it, right?
Oh,
like, you got to come with something if you're going to even compete. So I'm like, okay, let me come with something. I'm just like, all right, Nikki, post it. I want to see what's going on. I literally am like, I'm not waiting for her to post so I can see myself because I already know what I did. But I want to see what everybody else is doing. I'm like, because everybody has a story. And I'm like, I want to hear people's stories and like how they're, going to impact me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like I'm drawing from all of that. I'm drawing little tips. I'm drawing things from the stories, and I'm like, okay, I see how they did this, and I see how they did that. And like, okay, you can kind of use that same technique, but how does it, how do you make it unique to you? How do you tell your story and your voice and still, convey the message? And so like right now, it's the most interesting thing. Like, I think some people would kind of be nervous, like, oh my gosh, am I going to win? Am I going to win? I'm really in the state of like, I'm playing with house money. So at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. Like,
you can't lose.
I proved to myself what I wanted to prove, right? That I actually could go out and do it. And now it's just the situation where it's kind of like, okay, win, lose, draw, whatever. Like, you kind of know the steps. Now it's, what do you do after that? Like, how do you get better? How do you continue to increase and raise that level? Because I'm watching some great dynamic young speakers, not just in BU, but people that kind of came through that whole craft, like people like David Shan, and, Jeremy Alexander, and like even Kendall Ficklin. Like, I'm listening to him, and I'm like, yo, these guys are like on it. And so like I'm gleaning all of that stuff in, but at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, I need a coach that's gonna help me to get over the hump and figure out like, how do I really craft this to where it's different doing a 3-minute speech or a 3-minute presentation to like you got to deliver a keynote or talk for like 45 minutes to an hour. So I'm like, okay, how do you, what are the tips? What are the techniques that people use to be able to draw from that? And I think one of the things that helps is like something that we're doing right now. We're just really having a conversation, right? And so I think when you're organic like that and you're passionate about whatever it is you're saying, like all of that stuff will kind of come naturally over time. But for me, I think being in a speaker's battle try to help hone some of that stuff to where it's like, okay, now you know some things. Let's go to the next level to see how far you can take it.
Right. Man, that's amazing. I'm glad you shared that story because I also threw my hat in the ring, and I didn't get through the first round, but something that I definitely got out of it was like getting out of that paralysis by analysis mentality, where my topic initially was excuses of all things. And I was like, okay,
oh wow,
I'm going to talk about what I've been doing. I've been making excuses about, oh, okay, I want a podcast, or I want to take the information that I've gained from Breathe University, from personal development, from getting on like mastermind calls, going to conferences, and now it's like I want to apply it because I'm in a position where I've stepped away from work, like my 9 to 5 every day, to where I need to like get my head refocused, and I actually have an opportunity where it's not do or die, but I put myself in a do or die situation to where I said, hey, just make it happen. Like nobody's chasing you but you, and only you know like what you need to do. So it's like as soon like I submitted my like I threw my hat in the ring to say, hey, I want to jump in. And it was like I thought it was maybe past the deadline, but I got put in the bracket, and it's like, hey, you got a spot, go ahead and do your thing. And I just went downstairs, like here in the basement where I'm at, and I was just like, well, it's just me and the whiteboard in the back, the wall or whatnot. And I was like, what in the world can I say about excuses? So I just jumped on Zoom and started recording because I didn't know, I haven't done video editing since maybe like middle school or high school. So I got like no idea. So I put out a video like this finally after recording it like 20 or 50 times. And like by the last one, I was just like dead tired. I was like, man, that was garbage. But like, don't make an excuse. Just submit it anyways and like see how it comes out. And as soon as I submitted it, I made the mistake to read some of the comments. And like the person I was going up against was just like, oh, I'll see the next person in the next round. I was like, I was like, that kind of just rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, he just passed over me like, oh, I remember you from last time, so I'll see you in the next round. I was like, okay, like I wasn't looking necessarily to compete, but I was like, I think I almost saw that comment before I recorded the video, so I may have gone into it with like the wrong passion, and that may have been like going too hard. But once it got submitted, I didn't make it, and I just saw like the comments that were the follow-up. I was like, okay, like this is constructive criticism. Take it and start working on it. So I basically used that to launch myself into starting this podcast to say, hey, I need to be able to work on my speaking, because usually I have an issue of being monotone a lot of times. And if I'm sure the people at the very beginning, when they listen to episode 1, and this one will probably be like episode 15 or 20, they'll be like, okay, like you've been practicing a little bit. So my thing was just like, what can I do? And I reached out to somebody before doing the speakers battle. I think he's on the West Coast too. Lee West. He's a rapper.
Yeah, that's it.
You know Lee?
Oh God,
okay,
that's my guy.
I was gonna say,
my guy, man.
So I had him on episode 3. I put it up last Tuesday.
Oh,
and
snap.
I put it up in the chat. I was like, hey, I'm looking for a speaking coach to help me get over being monotone. And he was the first one to respond. And he's just like, hey, I'm not a speaking coach, but I'm in the rap industry, so I think I might be able to help you out. So he jumped on. I think we jumped on the phone either by video, and he was just like, okay. We talked a little bit about it. It's like, what are you trying to do? And I was like, well, I'm trying to start a podcast. I'd like to talk to people that I've come to know, like people I've worked with. And I just want to be able to present myself and be able to communicate with the guests in a way to where it's not like terrible for the listener to be like, oh my God, like, dude, like just go sit down somewhere in the corner. So like the thing that he gave me was essentially what I named the podcast. And he said, okay, do like this, say this, it's my time. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. He's like, say it again. It's my time. I was like, say it again. It's my time. And I was like, okay. He's like, how did that feel? I was like, felt pretty good. He's like, you see what you did there? That energy that you created, that came out of you. So he's like, use that and take that to lead you. So once I took that information he gave me, I turn around and I see Nikki's posting the speakers battle. I was like, what can I lose? I'm not a speaker naturally. Like it's, if you have a voice, you speak. But
right. Yeah, exactly.
To become a speaker, like professionally, you have to work on that craft and tool it. So I was like, you got to start somewhere, and hadn't been doing anything up to this point. So just jumped on that train. After doing that, recorded the first like mini session after I forgot to record the first 45 minutes with a friend of mine, Theo, the Smiling Barber. I met him last year at a men's prayer line retreat. And he's a barber, like ex-Marine, and he started barbering as something to kind of just get him back into the swing of things. And he went from just doing it as a hobby to like actually making it his passion and becoming like more focused on the customer service approach, to where he's like, okay, like I understand this isn't just about cutting hair, but this is about selling an experience to my client. And then he went from taking the barbering class at the college to get licensed to taking the extreme execution.
Oh, wow.
He took the extreme execution. What do you call that? What's the word for it?
Is the certification one?
Yeah, the certification.
Okay.
So he went to get the certification just back in August 29th, I think 2019. And as soon as he did that, like we just jumped on, like every now and then we'll jump on the Zoom call and we'll just be like, dude, we got to record this. Like, I don't know what I'm about to say, but just record it. And like, as we're speaking, I've got to finish recording what we did a few days before he went to the certification. And I'm going to put that out for tomorrow for the 4th podcast, which is talking about kind of our background, where we're both African immigrants coming to the States with very similar background, like fathers are in ministry, just like coming here, talking about what it's like to be an immigrant and seeing why you do things a certain way, and just like what that exposure and certain expectations mean to you. But
right.
I guess I said all that to say it's great to be, not only to be able to interview you like this, but just know that this circle that we're in, it really just like produces and festers the success where people are just, you just challenge each other. And as soon as you see somebody else doing it, you're like, oh man, like, hey, like there's more people out here, like everybody's doing something. And it's
Right.
like, you're only encouraged to do more and more of yourself. You're not trying to necessarily compete with somebody else, but you're just like, oh, okay, like that person's driving me. And like, I got to step my game up because I want to run with the Lions. I want to be part of the pack.
Yeah. And so it's like, it's crazy. Like, so even just listening to you talk, it's like you probably got a whole bunch of stories, right, to tell about what it is to come from another country, to come to America and assimilate, and figure out, you know, how the culture works, and just figure like how to even get around, like, right? Those are like stories for you, like when you just kind of sit and think about it, the stuff that you draw out from like a life experience perspective, like can help somebody that's not necessarily even an immigrant, right? Just people who are just kind of like, man, how did he do that? Like, I've always wanted to start a podcast. Like, how did you start your podcast? And you can just tell them, like, man, this is what it sprang from. Yeah. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about BU. So even when I think about like the whole DISC assessment, right? So we talk a lot about the subconscious mind in some of the groups that I'm in, and how your subconscious mind like plants like all these thoughts, negative, positive, indifferent, whatever, but it's housing all of these thoughts. And so when we go through certain situations, we sometimes will pull from our unconscious mind, and it presents whatever thought that is becomes our reality. So like, for instance, there was a time where I was like, man, I just don't feel like, I grew up like skinny kid, big feet, long, slender, not pretty athletic or whatnot. Really nerdy guy that just happened to play sports. So I was kind of cool. But like my confidence level was like shot. And so I used to always walk around with like my head down. So like everywhere I went, I just walked with my head down. And I think it was, you know, you pull that in from like, what does that stem from? Because like, even after I got to a certain age, and it was like, dude, like you're not like the popular dude at school, but like people like you. Why are you still walking with your head down? It's because subconsciously I'm like, that's what I'm used to. I don't feel confident, even though like I've displayed like I can hold my own in certain arenas. And it wasn't until, I never forget this, man. I was walking to one of my guys' house, and I was just walking down the street. This random dude with his boy stopped in the car, and he was like, yo, Young King. And I looked up, and he was like, yeah, you. He was like, always walk with your head up, man. Don't hold your head down. Walk with your head up and always look life right in the eye. And I was just like this dude don't know me from Adam, right? He's obviously he's like an older kid. So he's probably just graduated from high school or something like that. But like ever since that time, like that stuck out to me. And I started slowly like learning to like, dude, walk with your head up. Always look life in the eye. Always look life in the eye head on, to show like life that you're not afraid of it, and to show people that you have that inner confidence. And so it's funny because I look at like, okay, where did you start off as a kid? Like you just were not confident at all, to like you're doing these speakers battles. Like that's crazy to me, right? So I'm just like, you started off one way but ended up another way, and it all just goes to show like you can retrain your mind to think and change your reality. And I know ET kind of talks about this sometimes, but if you listen to other people speak, that's kind of like a common theme. It's like, you know, what you think about, you become. And so if you're always thinking like, I can, or there's lack, that's what you're going to get. That's like what you're going to become. And so I had to force myself out of certain, like even to this day, there's still things I have to force myself out of thinking like, okay, yeah, I heard that. Nope. That's not my reality. This is what I want. This is what I'm going to go do. So we're going to go do that. Right. And even if I don't necessarily succeed at that particular thing, it's not that I jack myself up. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I didn't sabotage myself before I even started. And so that almost happened even with the first speakers battle, because I was just like, I don't think I'm gonna have enough time. Well,
Right.
if you don't think you don't have enough time, guess what?
You don't have enough time.
Enough time.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? Let me just go downstairs, find a spot, boom, go. Okay, man, it's always loud in here. And all of a sudden, just kept coming. I was like, you know what? Okay, it's gonna be loud, but then I'm getting some quiet points, and I'm gonna just press pause whenever it gets loud, and then I'll continue to record after everything quiets back down. And then it was just, okay, you know what? I did what I could with what I had, said it.
Yeah.
The rest just wound up working out. But I think a lot of times, and I think that's what what happens in BU is we get to hear other people's stories.
Yeah.
I think it becomes like, man, if they can get out of that,
right,
why can I not get out of the situation that I'm in? Like, if they can succeed doing that, why can't I? I think that's the question we always ask ourselves internally is when we see one another, it's not like, oh man, you know, Asher got his podcast, I'll never get a podcast. It's, man, I heard Asher's story. He got a podcast. I've been thinking about a podcast. If he can do it, why can't I?
Right.
And so we start to reach out to one another like, how did you start? What do you recommend? You know, we're getting all these tips. And even, I think we talked about it in one of the mastermind calls. It was like exposure. I know Kendall was talking about that. It's like exposure. You got all of this exposure to all these different people from all over the world.
Right.
That we can get exposed to. And being able to glean from all that stuff and pull all those nuggets in to be able to reshape how our subconscious is thinking about stuff.
Yeah.
Then it's totally amazing. Totally amazing.
It definitely is. I'm sure as I'm listening to this, I'm not even thinking about it, but subconsciously I'm almost like, this almost sounds like an advertisement for Breathe University, but I could almost care less because I'm just like, since that's like from the time that I joined the group and just interacting with people at different levels and just knowing that people genuinely want to improve their lives and seeing how it's taken shape from being able to talk to people one-on-one, like you talk to people online like this, and then when you finally meet in person, you're like, oh, hey, it's like you've been friends for life. And it's like, okay, you just finally get to like hug on the person, you shake hands, and you're like, man, how's this going in your life? How's that going? And a lot of people, it's like you become closer with the people online than you do with your own family. But for me, it's kind of become an encouragement to say, okay, if I've been able to become friends with complete strangers, I think there's some kind of hope to get closer to my family. And that's like after seeing my friend Theo go through the extreme execution training and hear his testimony about it, I was like, okay, I know I've been needing to do this. And now that the opportunity presents itself in this way, I'm going December 8th and I'm going to go. And it's like, we're going to continue to rap about it and be able to like, hey, this is going on, that's going on. And then you just stay in that mix. And then from just creating this and putting out an episode, I think I shared it with my oldest brother and he was just like, hey, keep going. Like, I like what you're doing. And it's like with, like as we talk weekly and he always like does his best to point me in the right direction, I'm able to take some of the information and stuff that I'm doing. And as soon as I have it as a proof of concept, I can say, hey, here's something that I've been able to master. Like I got that. I haven't been on the accountability calls, but I've already heard the language that they use there, where it's like, change the way you talk, you change the way you act, you change your results in your life. It's like when I go through Jamal's real estate training next year in 2020, I will amass at least one property that's able to generate income. And once I'm able to do that for myself, either here in Georgia or whatever state I'm in at the time, I'll be able to get that information and show it to my oldest brother and say like, hey, here's exactly how you can do this. And he lives in Chicago, so I can be like, hey, here's the person you want to connect with.
Right in his backyard.
Here's exactly what you need to do. And he's a systems person too, where once he understands it and he can see it, he'll just launch off with it.
And that's actually like, so that's funny because my profession, like I'm a realtor. That's what I do, like just ordinary everything. But I kind of was like, I had my own YouTube channel, right? And so I'm just sharing pieces of information to help people, like guide them through the process of like what it's like to purchase a home. What are some of the steps that you're going to go through? What are some of the things that you need to look out for? You know, how's the market right now? Just giving you visit, like, so information on the go. So it's called Info on the Go.
Okay, I'll be checking you out as soon as this is over.
Under somewhere between 3 and 4, sometimes 3 and 5 minutes. Sometimes they get a little bit longer because I'm trying to share all this information. I don't want to just cut it, but I think what I'll do is like do a 2-parter when I start doing it like that. But it like I got challenged by somebody I won't name from BU and Beast Mode Digital to put out more content.
Right.
And I was like, I'm doing it once a month because I'm my own, videographer. I'm my own editor. Like, I'm putting all this stuff together, and I got to do my regular 9,
Right.
And so I'm like, man, okay, you know what? I ain't gonna make any excuses for it. Like, I know I need to do more content. So I know I need to put out, 2 joints every week.
Yeah.
So I need to put out 2 joints every week, or at least at the bare minimum once a week. So it's not just, once every month. It's 4 times a month.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, I can do that. And so I just started challenging myself. And then all of a sudden it was like, now you got to do that. And you got to do these speakers battles. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Honey, there's going to be some nights where I got to go out and maybe go into the office so I can record to where it's quiet. And I'll be gone for a couple of hours because I at least want to get it recorded. And then I can go, during the day to do all the editing stuff like that. But I think the community that we're in just like challenges you to like really go forth, put your best foot forward and just go do it.
Yeah.
And like, don't worry about necessarily what the results are going to be. And I keep hearing that same theme. So like, there's a real huge, coach in the real estate industry. And he was like, when I first started, I was on a flip phone in Chicago and you can hear all the wind in the background. And I was just like, I just did it. But then you look at him now, like years later, he's like, I'm in the studio with a white, with the white background. And I got cameras to the left and cameras to the right. Like, I got a videographer and an editor, and like, I got, my branding and all this stuff. And he was like, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't have the money to do all the branding and all the stuff like that. But if you deliver solid content, people will tend to look past all of that because you're giving them something that they want. So you're providing something of value. And I think that goes along the same thing with, what a lot of public speakers wound up doing. So like people like E and, other cats like that, is they were just giving content away. And when you look at how it started with TGIM and then see what it looks like now, you're like, man, this is like a night and day product.
Yeah.
But the messaging was still the same, right?
Yeah.
It's still the same passion, still the same, fire content, but they packaged it up a little bit differently. So I'm pretty sure they could literally go back to like those first TGIMs, repackage it with the current branding, and you almost wouldn't be able to tell, right? You'd be able to tell it's like, okay, it's a little polished now, a little bit more polished now than it was back then. But if you rebrand it with the same packaging, you'd be like, oh, this must be a new one. And so you're like, oh. But it just goes to show, like, you just got to go do it. And then once you do it, I think, again, you're providing stuff of value and people are gravitating to it. They look past all the, all the flaws. Like, there'll be some haters. They're going to nitpick. But the people who are just like, I just really want to hear the message. I want to hear what this person has to say, and I gravitate toward it. They'll look past all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, your tribe is just building over time. Your tribe is building over time. And whether you change your branding or you don't, your tribe is still following you. They're going to rock with you. And so I think for you, just do you, man. Even if you sound monotone, like I'm a 90s hip hop kid.
Yeah.
So I grew up listening to people like Gang Starr. So you talk about
that's exactly who Isaiah mentioned to me. He was like, listen to this guy, the exact same rapper. And
Guru is the most monotone rapper you could ever hear.
But when I listened to him, when I listened to him, I was like, that's not, I was just thinking, I listened.
The round, like motion and highs and lows. It's even keel all the way through. But when you listen to the mixture of the beats from Primo and what Guru was actually saying, you're like, yo, this is solid. So you look past it. Like, again, you're gonna have some haters, because to this day people are still like, man, I can't stand Guru, just so monotone. But true Gang Starr fans, they don't really care. And that goes back to the point, like talking about the mastermind call maybe a few weeks ago, where they were talking about you can't try to chase two rabbits, right? So whoever your tribe is, whoever's rocking with you, that's who you're delivering your message to. So focus on them and not everybody else. I think that's one of the hard parts about, you know, either public speaking or having a YouTube channel or having a podcast is when we first start, we're like, man, I want to talk to everybody. And then they're trying to talk to everybody. You wind up talking to nobody.
Nope.
So it's like, okay, who is really listening? You start to look at the analytics, listening to what people are talking about, seeing like, okay, I noticed my type of audience is X. So whenever I put out my content, it's going toward X, because X is going to share that content out and reach more X. And it'll snowball. And so instead of trying to like be like, okay, I'm gonna just talk to everybody, I'm gonna laser focus in on my tribe, and that's what we talk to every time. And I think once you do that, everything starts to get a little bit more simplistic, even in terms of like, what kind of content am I going to create? Well, what is your audience really like? Like, what are they like? What's that avatar look like? Or that avatar look like? Like, what does that look like? And so you just focus on that. And then once you get that, man, everybody starts rocking with you. I'm still in that phase where I'm like, I was trying to figure out, like, oh man, how do I get, 100 YouTube subscribers? People are like, don't focus on the subscribers, dude. Just focus on the content. Like, who is your audience, and you focus on that. And if you focus on that, your subscriber base will build. But for me, I was like, I want to get to 100 subscribers just because I want to have a custom URL for my YouTube channel, right? I don't like that long link that they just assign to you. I want to have it be some youtube.com/Dietric Williams. Like, I wanted to have my own. So for me, that was my goal, to get to 100. But they were like, you're looking at it wrong. Focus on people who are like commenting, and people who tell you, even if they don't comment, people who are telling you like, yo, thank you for that information, really appreciate it. What does that avatar look like for those people? And you just keep putting out content for them. And eventually over time, they'll start to share out that content with other people. And the next thing you know, you're like, yo, man, I'm at 150. How did that happen? All organic, because you were focusing on that specific lane, and you were being a master and dominating in that particular lane.
That's awesome, man. I was going to ask you, for the YouTube, since you've been doing the videos for a while, have you taken some of the videos and just put it in audio format?
I have not. So what I think I'm going to do is, after the battle is completely all over, I'm going to actually start a different YouTube channel, because I have one just that, like, that's for my real estate stuff. So I'm going to start a separate YouTube channel that's for the speaking side. Because I'm like, okay, talk about multiple streams of income. Yeah, I'm a realtor, but that industry goes up and down. So, what can I do additionally to bring in another stream of income? Well, you could probably go speak. So like myself, I'm not going to do the certified speakers yet. I'm going to do the extreme execution to get certified in that. And the reason is a guru told me, like, look, if you do that, that'll give you the content you need to be able to go and speak. And I was like, bet. So I'm going to do that. And then when I need to like hone in on the craft and figure out like, how do you gel all this stuff together? Then I'll go do, the speak for profit tour. But I'm like, look, okay, you give me the content. Now I can figure out which stories I want to tell. And then I can use my stories and then pull in that content, around it. So the content is like, okay, what are you learning from extreme execution? I learned this. What story in your life do you have to pull to relate to that? Okay, bam, I got the story. So now you just put it all together. And then you just figure out like, okay, what are my bullet points? What do I want to talk about? Then from there, you can just make it like pure organic. Like, I know I want to talk about A, B, C, and D. So here's what I need to kind of set it up. You might draw the outline in your head and think about, okay, this is what I want to do. I'm going to talk on this, boom, boom. And then you just go.
Yeah.
I can almost guarantee, like, the first time I do it, it's probably going to be like, I'm going to go back and be like, man, that sucked. But it's one of those things where it's like, even when it sucks, you're like, okay, you know, I can improve there. Okay, I see what I did right there. I didn't touch on that point. Okay, don't forget, touch on that point, touch on that point. That was like the nail driver right there. You totally skipped it.
Yeah.
Because when we start speaking, a lot of times, like, our minds are just like, I want to say X, Y, and Z, and we're just all in there, right?
Yeah, you're all over the alphabet.
You just got to take a step back and be like, okay, what are the 2 or 3 points that I want to talk about?
Exactly.
How does my story relate to those 2 or 3 points?
Yeah.
And then you just go in, and you know, obviously you want to do stuff like engage the audience and get them to participate. You want to kind of break up certain patterns, take them on highs and lows. And there's little tips and tricks that, like, people will teach you.
Yeah.
I just start watching and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to ask this person, like, why did you do this? Oh yeah, that's called this style. And I'm like, what does that do? And they'll explain it to me and I'm like, okay. Let me put that in the toolbox.
Right.
So like, it's one of those things, like, you develop it over time. I think for me, what made it a little bit more natural for me was just coming from an art background, you know, an artistry background. Was like, okay, you're used to being on stage, standing in front of like 3,000, 5,000 people. So that's not an issue, like standing in front of a crowd and just doing your thing.
Right.
But it's a little bit different when you're like, okay, I got a specific topic that I need to touch on. Right. And I got to speak to this whole audience about that topic. As opposed to an artist, I'm like, dude, I got an album. It's my album. I get to say whatever the heck I want to say because it's my album.
Right.
You just go. So that's a little bit different. But I think the stage kind of helped prepare me for, like, how does it feel getting in front of a large group of people? Like, when you know, like, you're nervous, like, man, I hope I don't forget my lyrics. Yeah. Your butterflies, your heart's beating, you still nervous, but you like, I'm ready to go. But you still kind of nervous, right?
Right.
And so I think it happens to all the speakers that go out there. It's like, I know my craft, but you still get a little bit nervous because you're like, are they going to receive it?
Yeah.
How's it going to go? But at the end of the day, you just got to be like, go.
Right.
Just go. Don't worry about who's going to love it, who's going to hate it. Because some people going to love it, some people going to hate it. But you just got to go do you.
Right.
You hear it all the time. Be your authentic self.
Yeah.
I had to challenge that, like, right? So I'm just like, oh my gosh, your authentic self, Dietric, you're like a cornball dude, like you're a nerdy dude, like you're an analyst. So it's crazy because, like, I'm a high I.
Yeah.
But my S and my C are like 4 points lower than my I. Like they're all right there, right? Like my D is way down there. Like,
it's like you're almost even kill across the board.
Even killed almost. And so when I was talking to certain people, what's up, CB Phillips? He was like, man, your C is here.
Yeah.
But when it drops, it barely drops. So you're probably naturally a C. And I was like, you're right. Like, by trade, before I got into real estate, I was an analyst. So I was like, yeah, I'm the person that is like, why you want me to do that?
Yeah.
What does this mean?
Right.
Like, okay, I'm gonna measure twice and cut once. Sometimes I might measure 3 or 4 times before I decide to cut.
Right.
Sometimes I might be like, that 4th one, I'm not sure. So I look at it from that standpoint, and I'm like, man, you are definitely a C type. But because you have a performance background, like, that's where your eye kicks in. So you like going to the barbecue and being like, hey, what's up, everybody? And you'll engage.
Yeah.
But I'm always like, think, okay, what does this mean? What did they mean when they said that? What is, okay, I don't, yep, okay. I don't want to make that decision because I'm still analyzing. I'm not sure if I want to do it. Okay, stop. Analysis, paralysis of analysis. You got to get out of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's crazy, man. Like, ever since I got on the journey with doing all of this, even my wife was like, man, like, I'm seeing a whole bunch of changes in you. She's like, man, you going back to the gym, like the stuff that you do around the house, like how you interact with the boys. Like, there's a lot of difference between, not that I was like this bad dude, but it was like I'm seeing a big difference between how you were in June versus how you are in October. And I'm like, okay, obviously something's there, so let me keep doing that.
Right.
I want to keep doing that, so it's not like, oh man, you fell off. Like, I don't want to be that guy.
Right.
But yeah, man, I'm like, you got on there to do the speakers battle, and I think I was just like, man, once you craft your story, I think that's what I told you. Like, once you craft your story, you really know your story. Like, just tell it.
Right.
Just let it go.
Yeah.
And I think like that's where people start, like that's the authenticity that people that will gravitate towards you. So I'm like waiting for you. Like, I can't wait to tell the story, to hear the story where it's like, yeah, man, coming from, being an immigrant, and my dad, my parents are in the ministry, like, cause that's like a unique story. Like, not a lot of people's parents are involved in ministry, plus being an immigrant. So like that unique story, like that's a voice. And
there's a lot of us out here.
Yeah, somebody needs to hear that, because I can almost guarantee you somebody is sitting there and they're like, man, how do I navigate being an immigrant and then the son of people who are in ministry, and not necessarily come off as like I'm preaching to the world, even though like I know I have a calling, right?
Right.
And so
or that you're preaching when you don't want to preach.
Right.
Oh, you just muted yourself. Hang on. You just muted yourself.
Gotcha. People get to that state where they're like, I don't necessarily want to accept the calling because I don't want to be perceived in a certain kind of way.
Yeah.
But it's the story. Like, that's your story. Like, you got to tell that story, because somebody out there in the world needs to hear that story to help them become a better them, to help them figure out how to navigate through this thing called life. And I think that's a beautiful thing about like how we all just get together and share these stories. Like you come, so you from Africa? Where are you from?
Cameroon. That's where I was born.
Yeah. So okay, so I don't know the history of Cameroon, but like, did you have like griots that would sit around telling all these folklore, like all these tales about how it was? And
I'm just learning the stories now. Like, and as I'm going through this, like my mom just told me a story the other day that she usually, like, we've told in the past, and I was like, hang on, let me record this real quick. And like, I'm going back and actually studying my history now to understand like where it is that I come from, because me personally, like, I was born there, moved here when I was 7, but never, like, I don't know anything traditional like about my country. And like, at least seeing where it is, like, I understand it's maybe 65 years old, if that, like breaking out of colonization. And recently they just had something like political go on with like the president that's been in charge for over 30 something years, and they had arrested the opposing candidate because they're just like, oh no, like you're not doing that. They're like, as soon as he tried to like, oh, let me throw my hat in the ring, they're like, we're throwing you in jail. And not only that, we're throwing your entire cabinet in jail. And it's like 9 months later, they just released them. And like, people are kind of getting like emboldened, like, okay, like, yeah, we're out here now. Like, we're like, the real's coming out. But then different things have kind of ensued from that. And looking from a distance, it's like, I don't necessarily understand that because I didn't grow up in it. And like, I see my mom maybe watching the news every now and then because she grew up there, and she came here to the States when she was in her 40s. Like, she's like 64, I think 65 now. And like, that was the major part of her life. So it's like going from like, I think it would be as a way for me to learn my story, it will be a good way to be able to interview her on here, or just be able to record some conversations to where I can get some background context and like be able to talk to my dad, talk with my brother, my sisters, and just kind of see like everybody's viewpoint, because I'm the second to the youngest in my family. So I've got 4 older siblings, and they're all 2 years apart, and like the youngest one to me is 5 years older than me. So it's like there's just big gaps where I'm like, there's information I just don't know. And like seeing it from different people's viewpoint, I could be like, oh, okay, like now that makes sense. And then even going to the point of talking to what do you say, like uncles, aunts, cousins. Like I just went back, it was 4 years ago, to the country I was born in after 18 years of being in the United States. And it was just like, I just went, and it was completely like, I didn't know anything about it, because it's like, you've been gone for 18 years. So it's almost like not your home anymore. And you just come in as like this fish out of water, and you have your family receiving you. Like one of my mom's brothers took me around, like he set me up in his place. And what's funny, like I didn't know that he was in construction, because like I'm a construction engineer now. Like I went from high school to college kind of on a whim, where I got introduced to engineering, and I was like, that thing seems cool. Like you get to play games in this classroom, but at the same time you get to do drafting, and then you get to build these little projects where you make like a mousetrap car. You got like CDs on the sides of like this mousetrap, and you put little pegs underneath the mousetrap with CDs on the side. And then you basically set it to where once you trigger the mousetrap, it runs on either on a carpeted floor, or on like I don't know if it's linoleum, or like basically what the cafeteria floor would be like. And that was just like fun to me, where the whole drive there was like, as an immigrant, the big things are education and God, or at least in our family, that was the main thing. Like God's first, education's next, because if you get an education, you get into a good school, you get a good job, you get a chance to like fend for yourself. And just kind of taking that, it was like, okay, I can go the route of just getting a regular high school diploma, which is like you take your core classes, you do some language courses, and you're done. Or you can do what they call a dual seal in Georgia, where they have technical curriculums. So they had like a business track, they had an engineering track, they had a few other things, but it was just like an opportunity for you to kind of branch out. And I was like, let me go try that thing. And I guess I'm grateful for it not having direction in that sense, to where I was just able to go and do something myself. Like some things I look at a little bit bitter about, but I've kind of grown from that to where I'm like, I can't, and especially listening to ET, like I can't keep complaining about what happened to me or what wasn't done for me. It's like, okay, well, like somebody wasn't there to watch your games. Like, good. Like I wasn't good at football. I was Mr. Butterfingers. Like I happened to discover wrestling before basketball, because they don't let 6th graders play in our area. And honestly, I've never really played basketball except for maybe like 5 or 10 pickup games in my life. And that's about it. Like PE, gym, and like randomly. So somebody would see me as like, oh, you're like 6'2", you must play. Like I went to college and I'm sitting here working out, and they're like, oh, are you on the basketball team? I'm like, nope. I was like, I've always never played basketball. And they're like, wait, you're a black man that's 6'2". It's like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm here for engineering school. Like I understood that once I graduated, like I didn't cut it. And it's like, thankfully you're able to use your knowledge, use your head. Like I'm always grateful for my wrestling coach, and I'm going to interview him on here just because of like the impact he had on my life. And I didn't realize it at the time, but he would always kind of like praise me. And I would be like, from a religious standpoint or a Christian standpoint, where you try to be humble and you never want to be in the limelight, because it's like flattery is like this bad thing where it's easy to get flattered, but if you get caught up by like the comments and things that people say, you kind of get distracted from your goal. Yeah. But he would always tell this story about like where I was in a match and I was basically outsized by about 30 pounds because I lost out to I got challenged for my starting spot, and I lost out that week. So we needed to fill the roster. So I went up 2 weight classes, and we went to this private school, and he was just motivated about us being able to beat the private schools because like they've got the money, they've got boosters and everything behind them, where he came into a program that was failing. And essentially he not only was able to like light a fire under us because nobody really cared about the program. We had like our assistant principal trying to help us out, but like he's the assistant principal. He's got other focuses and things like that. And he's not really like a dynamic coach that understands all the preparation that goes into it. So it seems like we were kind of getting a half effort from that standpoint. But then when you get this new coach coming in, he's a black man that's like diesel jacked, and he was a football coach and as well as the wrestling coach, and he just came in with this intensity. People were like, oh my god, we can't stand him. His name's Charles Mitchell, and they were like, man, we can't stand Coach Mitchell. Like as soon as somebody would make a tackle in football, he would go over there like smacking them on the head, and somebody's like, wait, you're about to give me a concussion from just smacking me on the head. It's like, did I do a good job or a bad job? But like he just took that intensity into practice for wrestling, where before we practice, like we would work out or we would go run, then we'd go do the wrestling practice. That's about like hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. After that, we'd go to the gym and lift. And within just like a few months of doing that and taking weight training maybe a year before through football or for football, like gains, it could have been a combination of puberty, but I think just the effort and the work that he was putting us through, like I saw a difference in myself and other people started to see that. And then we went from taking one team member to the state championship to compete to eight team members went that year that he came in and completely changed the game. And then he didn't just do that for us, but he also went the extra distance to where like if somebody needed a ride, he would go and pick them up, or he'd say, where are you? Give me a call. Here's my number. And to this day, people still call him. Like I think he said maybe few people have maybe lost their lives, or like people are still able to reach out to him because they're like, hey, even though when you showed up, people wanted to make fun of you because they didn't think that you were the right guy, or like they were kind of curious as to like, what's this guy trying to do? Like he's over here educated, he's got a college degree. I think he went back and got his PhD, and then he switched school systems to where I believe he's a superintendent at his school, and he's not only leading the school from a leadership standpoint, but he took it a step further to where he's doing like the announcements bilingually. So he'll do it in English and he'll do it in Spanish. So he learned Spanish kind of like ET to be like, here's the standard and here's how we're going to do things. And everybody from the outside looking in, we're just like, oh no, that's not going to work. The same thing when he was doing the wrestling. And it's just like, he just has that drive within him where he's like, before I start my day, I go ahead and play a sermon. I get in that morning workout. I get that routine going to where I know like this is my focus and that's where I stay on it. I don't worry about what everybody else is doing. And now like having grown up 10, 11 years later and looking back, I'm like, okay, yeah, that was the guy. And that's still the guy because he's staying on mission and he's making impact in the community locally. And people take notice of that. Although they may be haters and want to make fun at the start, like execution is worship.
Most definitely. And that's I think one of the great pieces to that story is that even not knowing who this coach is just like he did him, which allowed, your team to just flourish. And how Like, if you think about that, how crazy is it that same kid, same school, same talent, different coach?
Yeah.
And it just goes to show you, when people talk about, I don't think I need a coach. I don't think I need a mentor. I don't think, like, you need somebody to help guide you through to get to that next level. Whether you call them coach, mentor, friend, associate, whatever the case may be, you need somebody to help guide you to the next level, because oftentimes we get so ingratiated in what we do, we get a very myopic view of what it is. When the coach can look, and they're looking like, okay, I see the whole thing, and I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Here's where the gaps are. Here's where, you're kind of cutting corners and making some mistakes. Here's how we shore that stuff up. So then it goes from, you got a team that, is just like, I hope we just beat this one team, to we got, one person that's at state, to 8 people on the roster that are going to the state, the state meet. And so that all boils down to coaching. And then it was like, people may not have liked the coach's, kind of persona, but they bought into the methodology. They bought into the system. And I think that's another key component, is a lot of times where we either don't want to get coached, or when we do get coached, we don't necessarily buy into the system. And then we wonder why the coaching didn't work. It's like, okay, well, yeah, it's not going to work, because that subconscious mind again is, it didn't work. See, I told you it wasn't going to work. That was because your subconscious mind, you were already like, this ain't going to work.
Right.
And so you got exactly what it is that you were thinking about. You didn't think that it was going to work, and that's what you got. But when people buy into the system and are like, you know what, this is going to work. Then when it works, you're like, I'm not really surprised. Like, everybody else may be surprised, but I'm not really surprised, because this is what I thought was going to happen all along. It was just a question of getting from this point where it's the beginning to now where we're at where we're at. I think I posted this on Facebook several months ago, and it was, I kind of tweaked it. I think it was a quote that Bob Costas had said at one point. Like, champions aren't crowned on the podium, they're crowned on the practice field. And I was like, yo, that's profound. And I think we see that a lot of times when we look at, like, people in the NBA or the NFL or pro sports or whatever it is. We say, oh, they won the Super Bowl. Man, that's dope.
Yeah.
But they were already thinking Super Bowl before the season started.
Yeah. So
they were training. Like, we're gonna win this thing. Like, and so people buy into that. And it's not the people that necessarily are the most talented, are the smartest, have the most, financial assets or resources to use. It's just the people who are committed to seeing the task done and then executing on that task.
Yeah. And I think they say it over and over. People hate them, but hey, you got to respect greatness. The Patriots, they just keep winning.
Man, and it's funny because, like, I grew up watching the Michigan Wolverines. I didn't even like Tom Brady then. But, like, now that he's on the Patriots, I'm like, oh my gosh. But I was the same way with Michael Jordan, because I'm a Knicks fan, right? So I'm like, man, I can't stand Michael Jordan, but I gotta respect what he did, right? I can't stand Tom Brady. It's not like I don't like Tom Brady as a human being, because I don't know Tom Brady, but it's like, man, you keep destroying some of the teams that I'm rooting for. Like, I don't like him. So, but at the same time, I'm like, man, this dude is in his 40s. He's still out here, like,
he's about to be 50, I think.
Man, he's like 47 or something like that. I'm like, he's still out here doing it at a time where most quarterbacks never get to see that age and still play the game at such a high level. And it just goes to show, like, one, his work ethic, and then two, like, he stays hungry. And I think that was something that E.T. was talking about on something he just dropped today. Yeah. He was like, oftentimes we're running, but when we can't see the person behind us that was chasing us, we either slow down or we stop, because we're like, what's the purpose? Like, they're not going to catch me. I'm going to stop running. Right. And I think that happens to the detriment of people, where when you look at people like Brady, it's like he still has a chip on his shoulder to where he didn't get selected
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Like that chip still sits on his
I
shoulder.
listened to that over and over again.
Over and over. And I think, but that I think that alludes to his greatness is because, like, dude, you're the best quarterback that ever played the game of football.
Yeah.
But you still think about that kid coming out of college that didn't get drafted right away. Like, all these other people went before you. And for you to still be thinking about that to this day, like, that's the motive. Like, that's the motivating factor. Like, he's like, nah, man, I still got something to prove.
Yeah.
So it doesn't shock me if he goes out, like, win another Super Bowl, because he leaves that, we call it a chip, whatever we want to call it, but he leaves that chip on his shoulder. It's like, nah, I might got, 5, 6 Super Bowls, but I'm not done.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not done until I say that I'm done.
Right.
And my body literally says, you cannot do this anymore. Right. He's still going at it like that. And I think that's a common theme, that if most people would just kind of take that on, not just even in, like, the people that are in BU, I'm just talking about in life in general.
Right.
If people would take that same type of attitude, like, just imagine what our world would look like, right? So you got all kinds of people who are just kind of like, man, I'm cool living average and just living in mediocrity, because all I'm really trying to do is just survive.
Right.
Where if it was like, nah, why would you just want that? Right. Why would you just want to hang on and get the bare minimum? Like, you're a descendant of a king. You're a descendant of a king. You are a royal priesthood. Dude, do you know what you have access to? If you understood who you are and whose you are and what you had access to, you'd be like, nah, I don't want to settle for just average. I don't want to settle for just surviving. I want to thrive. I want to be in that echelon of people that are just like, yo, this life is awesome. I can do this for my kids. I can do this for future generations. Right. Most of the time, we're just thinking about, I just want to survive and get through the day.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about the people that are coming behind me, and I'm not appreciative of the people that came before me that set the path.
Right.
I just want to get through the day. And that's that. Like, I was on that, to where I was like,
I was on that too. Yeah.
I just want to make it through the day. Like, I got enough stress on me right now. Like, I just want to get through the day.
Right.
And come home and just relax and survive. Then I became a father. And I was like, yo, no, these dudes are dependent on you. Like, they are literally depending on you to set them up in the future, so they don't have to experience a lot of the stuff that you had to go through. Now, that isn't to say I want to shield them from everything. I'm like, you have to grow up. Like, you got to learn to be a man. But why would I want to send you into an educational system that's going to take all this money from you, but not guarantee you something on the other end of it? Like, you're going to pay, but they're not going to guarantee you anything on the other end. And that's not to say, like, I don't necessarily say the educational system is jacked up. Because, like, I'm a college grad. I have an MBA, so obviously I figured it was important.
Right.
At some point, like, it's got to be important from some standpoint.
Yeah.
But I don't want my kids to be like, I want to go and do my MBA like dad.
Right.
But I don't want to have the debt.
Yeah.
That dad had trying to get it. Right.
Right.
And so for me, I'm like, okay, how do I set them up to, like, you want to go to grad school? Cool. It's already paid for. You ain't even reached college yet, but your grad school is already paid for if you want to go.
Yeah.
So that when you step out, you're not stepping out into the world behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
Like, you're stepping out, like, free of debt. Your credit is cool. Like, you're good. So if you're like, yo, I want to go buy a house when I get out of college and I'm 21. Yeah. Boom. I can go do that.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to put myself in a position where I'm like, I'm really struggling just to make it. And so when you hear people like Jamal and E.T. and all these people talk about stuff like that, and then you see it, you're like, man, E talks about being a college dropout, high school dropout all the time.
Right, right.
How is it that some of us have college degrees?
Yeah.
We're still trying to figure that thing out.
Yeah.
And so we have to figure out, like, where's the gap that's coming out? What are we not doing, or what are we not seeing that doesn't allow us to execute at that level to where we can go out and do and have all those same types of things? And I think part of it is, like, our limiting beliefs in that we could never be, you know, number one motivational speaker in the world.
Right.
We could never have a multi-million-dollar company.
Yeah.
We could never, you know, have 30, 40 houses that people are renting out from us, and we're living off of, you know, that type of income. We could never do those type of things because we never saw anybody do it in our communities or in our neighborhoods or in our families. And so we there's that subconscious mind thing in the back, right? I never saw this done in my family. What makes me think that I could be the one to do it?
Right.
Why not you?
Yeah.
Why not you? And so I think that's the thing that we have to shift, even when we're talking about, like, even amongst our people, is we have this limiting belief that we can't do it.
Right.
Or it can't be done. And that's why we see other people do it. We start hating.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't like that person. He think he all of that. She thinks he all of that. Like, why?
Yeah.
Because
maybe they are.
You can do
it's
the
like,
same thing.
Why aren't you all that?
Right.
Yeah, but I think to your point, it's a good point, and I think I've heard the conversation come up recently in the podcast that they put out on The Secret to Success recently, and I think it was a great point too, where we always talk about, for people that kind of become enlightened, they talk about creating this like debt freeness for their children, but at the same time they kind of have the conversation on the flip side to where it's like creating that environment may not be the best thing, because when you hinder somebody from the pain, you're actually hurting them in essence. Like, you don't teach people how to fall. So if somebody doesn't learn how to fall enough times, you might be crippling them because they don't learn how to walk. But then in the same thing, it's like you can create the opportunity, but instead of saying, I don't want my child to be debt free, it's that, okay, now I understand what debt is, for one, or if I don't, I can start training them like, hey, here's what I didn't learn in school. And instead of you, yes, there's a certain standard that you need to follow because that's just the requirement to get in the game. But once you get in the game, you have the opportunity to design your own career path. And I think he just came out with a book called You're Not the Boss of Me.
Not the Boss of Me,
Yeah. And I was like, I almost thought about jumping and going to get it, but I was like, no, if I'm not getting anything else for anybody, I'm going to tell them, here's a resource for you. If you're interested, go make the investment yourself. Because if you start spending your money, you understand what it took for you to get that money. And when you invest it and you're able to get something back from it, and especially when it's changing your mindset, that's a powerful thing. Because the most important thing I gained from watching ET when I first saw the videos in 2013, doing some like self-evaluation, was he spoke about what's your crossover, and he talked about reading. And as soon as he said that, I was almost immediately ready to turn it off, because I grew up all the time like hearing readers or leaders read.
Oh yeah.
But the one thing that he did different for me, he got specific. He said, read Who Moved My Cheese to work on your mindset.
Right.
And I was like, that's the weirdest title I've ever heard. Who Moved My Cheese? Like, what in the world is that? But hey, like, I've already watched 30 or 15 videos to this point, and I'm like, I like everything he says. Let me go get the book. And what did I do? Since I'm not reading like that, Audible is a thing. So I got on there, signed up for a subscription, and I was like, okay, you paid this much per month for a subscription. That's a little bit more than I pay for like music on Spotify. So it's like $10 for a monthly subscription where you don't have to have like the commercials. And if I pay for a subscription every month, it guarantees me a credit that I can use to buy a book. And then what I realized was that that book is a lot cheaper than the subscription. So I can just buy the book outright, and then I still have the credit for another thing. And I listened to it. It was like the story was less than 30 minutes. I looked it up on Google because like when something's out there for a while, like people will just have a PDF of it.
Yep, I get it.
23 pages. And I was like, what kind of book is 23 pages? Because I'd always seen people have the thick books. So I just thought that's all there is. Like, you see textbooks that you have to read. And that's another reason I couldn't stand reading, because I'm like, I spent all this time at school reading. Like, you go to school Monday through Friday. Like, for us growing up, we didn't watch TV at home. You had one day in the week where you could watch TV, and that's on Saturday for maybe an hour. Like, you can sneak in for Saturday cartoons, but like my dad would always be behind you. He's like, hey, get from there. Like go do something with your life. Like stop being a consumer and start being a producer. And it always aggravated me, and it never made sense just because I didn't have an example of what that actually meant. It just sounded like words. And it was always just like this rebuke, but never like a sense of direction. And I mean, for me, it kind of built some resentment, but I've been able to, and I'm still working through kind of like the healing process where it's that, okay, one, you need to talk about this with somebody and understand that like what you've dealt with in your past, you need to unpack and deal with now if you're going to move forward, because you can't just bury your past and be like, oh, like I got to school on my own. I did this. Is like that fire and that drive will get you so far, but then you're going to hit that glass ceiling.
Yeah.
And I think they talked about that before, but not to go on too many tangents. It's just like, it's with getting the information that changes your mind, like reading something like Who Moved My Cheese, a very simple story about 4 characters where you got 2 little people and 2 mice. And just the way that they name the characters, it goes right into the story. And it's being told at a high school reunion where you see, oh, this person was supposed to be this person was supposed to be that. Yeah. And you see kind of where they wind up. And one person explains, I would have gone down this path, but because of this story, I was able to see changes in my environment and make the adjustment. And it's like, I said that not to spoil it too much, but just could kind of give you a sense of what it is, because it's like, once I read that, he suggested another book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I was like, let me grab this book, because a friend of mine introduced it to me my freshman year of college. And I told him, oh, I'm too busy because I've got schoolwork to do. And I just didn't get it.
You need to read it.
five years later, after I graduate college, I opened the book with Audible, and I'm just listening to it as I'm doing like another task or something that's just, it doesn't require a lot of energy. So it's like, I can tune in, but every time I kept listening, I was like, oh, I need to stop. Like, I need to stop. And then when I finally got through the book, I was like, you mean to tell me, because I thought I was so smart, for 5.5 years, I could have had this information and been in real estate and actually applying it. And then I see where I lived for 1.5 years. This guy the landlord had a duplex where he had 6 rooms with a duplex is 2 houses or 2 units essentially put together. He had 6 rooms in each one. And we were maybe paying like $400 in Midtown in Atlanta. So if you have 400 times 6, what is that, like $2,400? Like every single month. And he has multiple properties like that. And what was funny, I had some sense to actually ask them the question, like, how did you get started in this before I left? And he come to find out he was a mechanical engineer, and like he went through, tried to do the thing. And his thing for doing the real estate was that he wants an opportunity to be able to help out engineering students that are there going to Georgia Tech, and like other students from around. Like you have some people that are acting and stuff like that. And it's just like, I guess, I don't know if something came from that moment, but getting the information then, this was back in 2014 when I read the book, and now fast forward to 2019, and I'm like, oh, now I'm ready to make the investment into Jamal's course next year to say, hey, I want to take his course and learn from him, because I've heard him talk about it. I've seen him in person. I've seen his progression as he's doing the keynote now. Like, he didn't want to be a speaker, but he wanted to be a businessman. And it's like, I think him and E just talked. He's like, E.T.'s becoming a businessman.
He wanted to be a businessman, and he wanted to be a speaker. And then they
switch roles.
Yep,
trading places. But it's like seeing that and like finally being in a place of clarity to where it's like, oh, okay, like the game isn't necessarily, like the game may or may not be rigged against me, but like I got the code now. Like I got the keys. And now that I've got it, I'm gonna stop crying about, oh, this and that. It's like, I'm going to work on me, develop something, and then once I get it, I'm going to take it back to my family, take it back to somebody that wants it, that says, oh, hey, how did you do that? Like once my opinion's asked for, then I say, oh, here's how I did it.
Yeah.
And like yourself, I'm analytical, so I document everything. It's like all the journals, like some things I wrote down, some things I haven't, but now going through like the podcasting process and like just jotting down bullet points of what the 5 or 6 years have been like, it's really putting things into focus to where like, oh, this is how people write books. And I've heard of people say, oh, they want to write books, but like being in Breathe University around people that are literally writing books every single day, I'm like, oh, okay, like this person over here, I think it was Sugar Ray Destin. He's over in I think Houston, Texas, and he started a program to be able to not only write a book but turn it into multiple streams of income. I think maybe he said like 6 or 7. From the time you write the book, you go ahead, you not only write a book, but you have a plan to write a workbook to go with it, to where that's 2 streams of income. And then you develop like a webinar to go with it, a coaching program. And then those are just like the same things that all came with the one idea. And like you take that and I'm like, oh, okay, that's the same thing that he's been able to do, where he started ministry, kind of went the speaking route, and like the whole time it's like, okay, you're speaking, you're just working on this gift, but then you finally link up with people. You link up with somebody like Carl, who I identify with, is like, okay, you're a supporter. And he had the wherewithal to think, hey, let me record this because the world needs to see this. And they put it up on something like YouTube, and it slowly but surely blows up. And you have CJ, I think you muted yourself again. You have somebody like CJ that has the idea to say, okay, here's where we need to go. And ET, being the man he is, he's humble enough to say, hey, you that are younger than me, I'm going to let you direct me and say, I'm going to fall back. And I see this vision for myself, but I see that you have the vision for this dream that I already have, and you're able to direct it better than I can, and I'm going to get out of the way. And just seeing like the beauty of that, it just more and more of an encouragement to where I don't really listen to people when they say, oh, our people are this or this. I'm like, no, that's not true. Like, stop listening to the lies that you've been fed. Like this book, I've been reading this book on the regular from Dennis Kimbrough. It's Think and Grow Rich, a Black Choice.
Black Choice? Yeah. Hold on. Matter of fact, is my copy in here?
Like, I literally started reading it October 1st. I literally started reading it, and I was just like, wow. Like sometimes you just have one of those dumb moments where I'm like, oh, it's thick. But then I opened it up and I'm like, oh, it's literally 1 page day by day. And that's all I got to read. Like, and I just made it part of my morning routine. And I was like, you know what, since I'm starting this podcasting thing, let me just put it out there on Anchor as like a bonus episode, as a way that it gets me to practice. And then it gives something to people. It's like, I'm not trying to monetize it or anything because it's not my content, but I'm simply using the information to say, okay, like, let me work on like the inflections in my voice. Let me work on this and use that as a practice. And like from the time that we started the call, where I reached out for a coach, got in touch with Lee West. He gave me the information, jumped on, did the speakers battle, submitted my thing, even though it wasn't the best, and started recording for the podcast slowly but surely. And then doing this, getting some feedback from some of the, like one of the guys on the men's prayer line that I respect a lot. And he's part of the reason why I started this podcast, actually, because I saw how he interviewed Brian Keith. I'm not sure if you know him.
Oh, wow.
But like just watching him from afar and being able to talk with him one-on-one, and recently getting some feedback from him. And he was like, hey, make sure that from the things you've shared with us, like touch on being an immigrant. Like make sure that you highlight that because that's what's unique to you.
That's unique. Exactly.
They'll be drawn to that and they'll be like, oh, okay, like now I have a reason to come to this. And this isn't just another podcast or something that's just like noise out here to just fill up the space, but it's adding value into somebody's life. And when I was confused earlier about the time that I was going to be speaking with you, like there was a coach on Instagram that reached out to me that's actually from the ETA family. And he was just like, hey, I see what you're doing with the podcasting there. And I'd like to help you out and coach you doing this. And like, we just talked, it was supposed to be 15 minutes. I think it ended up being like 45 minutes where we just had this good exchange of information. And I recorded part of it for myself later to where I could go back and kind of listen to where I'm like, okay, I spoke, but like, let me be clear and intentional about what he said so that next time that we speak, like I can say, here's what you told me to do. Here's what I did. Like you critique it. If you got to tear it up, tear it up. It's business. I'm not here to get my feelings hurt. I'm over that. Like if you think it's garbage, if I got to redo it 100 times, if I've got to do this 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, whatever, like that's not important. The only thing that matters is get results. Like do something so much that you love it, and even for this, I didn't know that I quote unquote loved it. It was just, I kept finding myself listening to podcasts like ET, like Secret to Success. I keep listening to it religiously. Like Joe Rogan, I keep listening to his stuff because like I was telling you with the YouTube thing, it's good to see it on YouTube, but I can listen to so much more when it's in audio form because I'm driving for an hour, commuting, driving across here or going here, or even on a plane, because like you download it and I can just listen to it on the air without using any kind of Wi-Fi or anything like that.
Have it at your disposal.
Yeah. And it's just like, after doing that so much, and I came across this guy that Joe Rogan interviewed. He's a clinical psychologist out of Canada where he practices psychology as well as teaches at the university level. And his name's Jordan Peterson. And he spoke about, he basically spoke about in this book that he wrote, it's the 12 Rules for Life. And the first rule that he talks about is stand up with your shoulders back, which kind of goes to what you were saying about walk up with your head up, looking life in the face. And the detail that he kind of goes through, it really, like, he's kind of like Malcolm Gladwell, where he gives you a lot of the background to like how he gets to that final point. Like you can listen to the final point and get the information, but once you kind of go through the journey of understanding like hierarchies and things like that, it's like, here's why you need to stand up straight with your shoulders back. It's not just a catchy phrase that I'm giving you, but I'm showing you my execution of how I got here. And that's a quote that I saw today from Gary Vee. He's like, the quotes are cute, like everybody's putting out quotes online, but it's like the execution and the work that you've got to do, like that's what matters. Because like today's the 21st of October and I've been doing my daily routine consistently for over 21 days, and that's when the habit clicks now. When I get up and I'm like, oh, let me jump on my phone real quick, I'm like, nope, make your bed, go meditate, get out of the house and go exercise. And it's just like bam, 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 bam. And like I said all that to say, it's really a pleasure talking with you. And the thing, like you were talking about earlier, was start where you are. This is my old phone that kind of broke on me. Like it wasn't working service-wise. So I got a new phone. And what I did, I was like, okay, I started to make up the excuses like, oh, I don't have a camera, I don't have this. So I was like, okay, if I don't have content per se, I'm just going to start filming my morning routine. So when I'm going to the track, I bought this little tripod off of Amazon for maybe like $10 or $20. And it happens to come with like a remote, but where you can take a picture or something while you're walking. But
I need one of those.
I'll send you the link for it.
Man, I need one of those. I got a standalone camera, but I'm like, I can't take that everywhere I go, man.
So it's like, and the cool thing about this one is that it has the option to grip your phone, as well as like if you have like one of those GoPros or something, you can twist on there. But I was like, hey, don't go too far. Use your old camera. Even I'm sure people want to clown, but it's a Samsung, and it's like the camera quality or the video quality is good enough. And I figured, hey, I'm just going to record myself walking on the track in the dark. And it's like, I have a vision in my mind for what that looks like. And once I train myself to get my voice where I want it to get, to where I can deliver the message with poise and power rather than just like raw energy. It's like that raw energy may not be me, but my power comes from like the calmness. It comes from that, from just being paced correctly, because it's like that's how I learned to speak English. It's like you have to what is it, alliteration, you have to be able to use the inflection in your words. And one of the things that I learned is that even though that's how I learned, that's not the only way to speak. And speaking to somebody that may they may fumble on the words, like, so long as the message gets across, that's my thing. I'm like, if I understand what you're saying, you're good. Like, don't worry about if you need a mic, if you need this. Like right now, I've been recording in this room, whiteboards in the back sideways, because I haven't bothered to hang it upright, but I'm just in transition. But the whole reason I put it up there was to get this light in front of me to kind of absorb it.
Hey,
and,
see, you
that was just for, right. That was from my friend Theo. He just suggested it. Like the first time we were recording, like for real, we were just like, hey, okay, adjust it right here. And he's like, move the camera over, and I was like, I'm doing the manual adjusting. Like I'm just moving my camera like this. And then when he saw it from the computer, from the laptop angle, he just started laughing. I was like, hey man, you use what you got. And that's kind of like the immigrant story. Like
just start, man, because that, like, even that, you're going to, like, you'll tell that story to somebody out there who's wondering, like, what do I do? I don't have all the power equipment that such and such has. And they're like,
right.
They may already be feeling like, man, I might as well not even start because I don't have the equipment to do it with. And then they see you and they go like, that's all Asher was using? Oh, let me start it. Okay, I can do this. I can do this.
Right.
But just by that, you've encouraged, who knows how many people just to go do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what it all boils down to, is when we talk about, following your passion. And I think that was one of the things I was listening to earlier today was like, don't chase the money, just hone in on your passion, and then the money will wind up coming to you.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we focus more on the money rather than on the passion. And so we try to go do everything to secure the bag. But in securing the bag, we're not being our authentic self. And so I think when we chase our passion and truly what we're passionate about and what we really like and what we really want to do, that spills out into everything else. And that's when people, especially when we're talking about social media and all these things, that's when people gravitate to you, because they're like, okay, Asher's not trying to come off as fake. It's like he got it all together and everything's super perfect. And like he got the back, he got the thing in the background and it's crooked. Asher, why you got the thing up there and it's crooked? Oh, yeah, I'm using it for the light.
Right.
Okay, let's keep rolling. And some people be like, yo, that's hilarious, but I got it. My man is funny. So, but that's what makes people go, yo, Asher was like real genuine, just in terms of what he was talking about, real relatable. And then they go spread that news, and the next thing you be like, man, how do I go from 20 people following to like 20,000 people following? And it just happens because you're just being who you naturally are. And so even as you talk about like working on your inflections and everything, whatever you do, don't lose you.
Right.
Because don't lose you. So we train and all the rest of that stuff, but as long as we keep us, and that's the main thing. Like that's what people wind up gravitating to too. And then you'll pick up little things here and there to like it always improve, like always be improving, like always trying to, what do I do to get better? What do I do to get better? What can I tweak about the show? What can I tweak about the content? What different types of questions may I want to ask this person as opposed to that person? And so as you start to do it more and more, like you probably already seen, like you're like, man, this is way better than when I first did the very first one. Like much better. And so one day you'll look back on this episode and be like, man, this episode was cool, but man, like I'm so much further along now. And you just keep going. And then somebody's gonna come, I guarantee you, somebody will come up behind you and say, how did you get where you are?
Yeah.
You can tell them like, man, I started in my basement. Let me show you the phone I got, and then it broke, and then I had to go get this one, and then they'll be like, man, that's all you were using? Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, cool, bet. I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got somebody coming up behind you who will tell their story, and then they're going to tell somebody else coming up behind them their story. And it just brings me back to something I learned a long time ago, is a lot of times we're trying to climb, the ladder of success, but we're climbing and we're not thinking about the people that are coming behind us. And so when you think about like mountain climbing or something like that, they always talk about, you climb and reach back, you help the next person to come up.
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty of just the community that we're in, is that no matter what level you are, somebody's always reaching and somebody's always climbing. And so, we're looking at the top with people like Kendall and E.T. and Moose and CJ and all those guys, but they're still reaching back, helping other people to climb up. And then those people are reaching back and helping people to climb up. And then once we do that, like, man, it's a beautiful thing, and it's no telling what changes the generations that come behind us. And I think that's real beauty of, the whole community that we're involved in, is that got people that are helping you get to the next level, but then you become that person that helps somebody else get to the next level. I think that's dope.
Yeah. And the thing that's dope on top of that, where he's always putting out his goals, and I think the most recent thing that he's trying to do is get the Nobel Prize. And like as soon as he said it, I'd been following him well enough to be like, oh yeah. I was like, okay, yeah, you got it. Like whatever you need to do it, like I'm there. Like if you need like help at an event, like, hey, if you got to do Nobel, like whatever. Because then, like for me, it's kind of like a sense of like reassurance, to where it's like you see someone's progression, and like I've seen him on the speaking end, but where I saw him on the spiritual aspect and understanding why he has like the nickname of hip hop preacher, that he's actually a preacher, and seeing like what he values, and seeing that, okay, offline he's still the same as he is online, like in front of the camera. And I'm like, I respect that even more. And one thing that helped me to do was that I stopped idolizing him, and I realized, oh, okay, this guy follows God, and he follows the same God that I follow. He believes the same God that I believe. Like that reaffirmed my faith in Christ, to where I'm like, okay, let me go back to where I started in college, and I started questioning why it is that I believe what I believe, and doing the research myself, and also getting in like a Bible study and understanding, oh, like there's levels to this. Like I might feel like I'm drowning having to read like 5 chapters or 10 chapters every week. And then sometimes I'm like, okay, like I got through a year, but I need to fall back. Like I'm going to go back to like 1 verse a day, 1 chapter a day. And it's like, okay, I slowly build up that muscle. And then when it gets to be too much, like start back right here, like build back up, like start here, build back up. It's like build back up, build back up. And then you just kind of, my biggest thing since graduating was just like, I need to establish a firm foundation. But what I did wrong with that was just I locked into having this foundation, and I was like, I can't go anywhere until I have the foundation down. But the thing that I'm figuring it out is that you have to constantly build in different areas of your life. And that's what makes you, like you becoming the brand, you becoming like your authentic self. Like that's what your foundation is. And like the people and the community that you build around that support what you do, and you support what they do, like that's your foundation. And once you have that, like it will never be broken. And especially if you have like a spiritual base, emotional base, physical base, financial base, like when you're covered in all aspects, it's like they're talking about that triple double life, where it's like I'm working in all these areas. And yes, I can record for hours, but I understand like, hey, if I woke up at 3 this morning or whatever time, like I can go, but when the body needs rest, 45 minutes, rest, get up and do it again. And then it's like, if you're doing the 9 to 5, like, yeah, like respect the 9 to 5 for what it is. And you may be mad that you're having to work for somebody for a check, but like honor the gifts that they're giving you. They're giving you a job, whether it's right or wrong. Like, you're going there and you're collecting a check. And that's kind of what I understood, that, okay, I'm going to give my all. But then once I realized that my all that I'm giving isn't being met, it's like, okay, I'm going to do my job. I'm going to do it well, but also I'm going to start to create my own work. As Miles Monroe said, it's like the difference between a job and like your work. It's that nobody can fire you from your work. And once you start doing that, no matter like where you go, like you will always have that. Even though I got an engineering degree, like I didn't just being able, like having to pay for the tuition myself, taking the loans and things. I'm glad that I was able to have like my older brother mentor me to say, okay, like here's where you want to go. And then I was able to kind of push back and say, okay, well, I can do this. I'm going to work this job during the summer. And while I'm working, I'm going to take some of that money and I'm going to reinvest it into my education. Like some things could have been done differently, but they weren't. So that's just the matter of the fact. But taking that same information, I'm passing it on to my younger brother, who's 8 years younger. And I'm trying to tell him that, hey, you really got to focus on not the degree necessarily. Yes, the degree is important, but start thinking about what it is that you're doing now and what you want to do, like where it is that you want to be, why it is that you want to be there. And as those ideas come up, write them down, record them or something, and then let's have those conversations to where you have to create a job by the time you get out of college. Yes, if you go to work for somebody, that's great. You have a source of income that's able to fund the dream, but don't just let the dream be a dream. Let it be a target. Like Kendall said, I met him this weekend. They had like a G-Man event in Atlanta. And he said the difference between a goal and a target is something like a goal is something that you're trying to get to, but a target is something that's like measured. Like it has a bullseye there to where, you know, like if I hit that, then like I hit it. But the thing that's important, I believe, about having a goals or whatever words you want to use, it's good to have something that you can like shoot for the moon or shoot for the stars to like land on the moon. And like once you get there, you're like, okay, like you have to hope for something and then like work towards that with like short daily goals. If it's just like, hey, I got to get out of bed, or hey, I was talking with Regina Waller and she said for her to forget her routine in order, she made it a conscious effort to slide out of bed to where she fell on her knees to pray, because she was like, if I don't do that, like if I just walk out, I may forget to pray and then that messes up my day. But when I slide down and I fall on my knees, like that physical action stirs something. It triggers like, okay, the day's starting. Then I did my prayer, I make my bed, and then I'm out the door. And then it's like, just from speaking with her, I was like, okay, it makes sense why you're the resume doctor. And it's like, you're not only doing this, but the way that you're impacting people in turn impact you. And it's like this nice mutual relationship where everything that you do, so long as you're being your authentic self in a positive way and not just like bugging out, like if you're truly who you want to be and you keep working on that, it just blows you up and makes more opportunities for you. Indeed.
Awesome, man. Yeah, man. Good stuff.
So before you go, I guess I maybe should have asked you this as the first question. If you would tell people who you are and where they can find you.
Okay, so I am Dietric Williams, also known as the Navigator, taking you from where you are to where you want to be. If you want to find me, you can find me on Facebook at Dietric Williams, Instagram at Dietric Williams. I think Twitter is at Dietric Williams. I've been redoing some of the hashtag stuff too. You can also find me on YouTube. Just Google info on the go at Dietric Williams, Dietric Williams. You'll be able to find the information on my YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff like that. But yeah, you can, if you just Google me, you can find me pretty much on all the social platforms.
Awesome. Make sure you get that.
And just so you know, just to put some preface behind that, so I'm a real estate agent in the city of Los Angeles in California. Been doing this for about 12 years, and actually started off as I wanted to be an investor, and then just kept coming into people who were like, how do I? And I was like, well, since I have a license, let me just show you how.
Right.
And so I've been just helping people and families to get a piece of the American dream. And, you know, a lot of first-time buyers and people that are working on doing stuff like you want to do, invest, buy multifamilies, and invest, and buy apartment buildings and things like that. So I love what I do, and I'm passionate about the families that I get to help. So again, if you want to find me, just Google Dietric Williams. I'm on Dietric Williams, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. I mean, I've lost track of all the social platforms I'm actually involved in because there's like so much going on. I need to hire somebody to do that.
Yeah, you need a coach.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you can find me online. Just Google Dietric Williams, real estate agent, or info on the go, whatever the case may be, and I'm sure I'm gonna pop up.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Thanks, Asher, man. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure speaking with you. Until next time.
Enjoy the rest of your day, brother. Yeah, I'll talk to you next time, man.
Yes, sir. Oh, right, I guess I'll see you Wednesday on the call.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
All right, have a good one.
You too. Bye.